Hello and welcome to the 2019 Summer Food Service Program Potential New Sponsor Training, Part 1. This webinar is geared towards organizations interested in being a sponsor in the Summer Food Service Program. Due to the volume of information, we have broken this training into two parts. To be considered for approval in the Summer Food Service Program, it is required that you attend both Part 1 and Part 2 of this training. SFSP Basic session is for new sponsors and any new staff working with an experienced sponsor. This is a quick overview of the application process and basic requirements of the program. If you are a government or a nonprofit organization, SED will visit your site and conduct a one-on-one new program visit where you will receive more detailed guidance. Due to the number of attendees, everyone has been muted upon entry. You can ask a question at any time by typing your question into the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. After the presentation has concluded, it is important that you do not exit your WebEx browser, as this will simultaneously disconnect you from the teleconference. If you are accidentally disconnected, just log back into WebEx and rejoin the teleconference. After the presentation, you will receive an email with a link to take a brief survey to provide feedback about today's webinar. Please note, in order to meet the mandatory training requirements for the Summer Food Service Program, you need to attend this webinar as well as Part 2 webinar on March 19th. There is a lot to learn about the SFSP, so in addition to this webinar, you may also attend one of our in-person trainings to gain more information and meet the SFSP representatives and who can answer any organization-specific questions you might have. The Summer Food Service Program, or SFSP, is a federally funded USDA program administered by the New York State Education Department. The reason the SFSP was established was to ensure that low-income children continue to receive nutritious meals when school is not in session. The program is for children 18 years old and under. Individuals that are 19 years and older with a physical or a mental disability may also be eligible to participate in the SFSP. Meals are provided to children as part of an organized and supervised meal service. It is a program requirement that children consume the meals on site in a congregate setting. This is not a grant program. Sponsors are reimbursed a flat rate for each complete meal that is served to a child. These are the federal reimbursement rates provided per meal. Reimbursement is used to offset the operational and administrative expense of running the program. Please use the potential reimbursement worksheets provided in your application packet for an estimate of what you can expect in reimbursement. It's important to evaluate what your costs will be versus how much you will be reimbursed to determine if operating the program will be a viable option for your organization. You must have additional funding sources, because the reimbursement most likely will not cover all of your expenses associated with operating the program. There are multiple steps and required documents involved in applying to the Summer Food Service Program. First is to attend our new sponsor training. Second is to complete the paper application. An application has been mailed to all organizations that have presented themselves to our office. If you haven't received the application, contact our office and speak to a program representative. If you need any assistance with completing your application or are unsure of which requested documents are applicable to your program, please contact our office and a program representative will be happy to help you. If you are a nonprofit organization, you will also need to complete the nonprofit financial packet. This is your opportunity to demonstrate that you are a viable organization to sponsor the program. Ensure all sections are completed and all requested documents are submitted. The single permanent agreement is the written agreement between the sponsor and the State Education Department that states the sponsor agrees to comply with all program requirements. This must be notarized and mailed into SED with the original signatures of the authorized official. This will be mailed to you once you submit a complete application and then must be returned to SED for program approval. School food authorities, or SFAs, will already have this agreement on file with the Education Department. The payee form must be completed by sponsors that are non-SFAs. The payee form will include your organization's DUNS number, STAM expiration date, and vendor ID. The payee form in the application packet has instructions on how to obtain these. All of these are required for organizations to receive federal funds. All sponsors must also submit a menu that meets all meal pattern requirements. The deadline to submit the application is May 1st. However, SED recommends completing it as soon as possible to give yourself enough time to submit any missing documents or provide clarification to SED. Additionally, if your organization needs to obtain the DUNS, STAM, and/or vendor ID, this process can take some time. Therefore, it is important to meet this hard deadline. Applications received after May 1st will not be considered for the 2019 SFSP. Also note that meals served prior to the approval date are not eligible for reimbursement. Once SED has received your application, the process will be as follows. SED will contact you within 15 days to notify you of missing, incorrect, or inaccurate information. In the event that you fail to provide the required information to complete your application within the time frame specified by SED, it will result in your application being deemed abandoned and therefore will not be subject to further processing or consideration for participation in the 2019 SFSP. Upon receipt of a complete and correct application, SED will issue notification regarding the approval or denial within 30 days. This is the list of documents included in the application packet. Again, if you're unsure of which ones apply to your organization, please call our office. Sponsors must accept financial and administrative responsibility for all of their sites. If there are any findings based on SED reviews, they must be permanently corrected and implemented at all sites. Sponsors must operate a nonprofit food service, meaning that the food service operations are principally for the benefit of participating children, and all of the program reimbursement funds are used solely for the operation or improvement of the food service. Sponsors must agree to provide an organized and scheduled meal service for children in designated low-income areas or demonstrate that you are serving low-income children. Sponsors must demonstrate that they will exercise management control over the meal service at all of their sites. Management control of the meal service means the sponsor is responsible for maintaining contact with the meal service staff, ensuring that there is adequately trained meal service staff on site, and monitoring site operations throughout the period of program participation. Sponsors must provide a year-round public service to the area in which they intend to provide the SFSP. State agencies may grant exceptions to this year-round service requirement for sponsors of residential camps, migrant sites, and in certain other limited circumstances. SED cannot approve your organization if you are already operating a federal feeding program to the same population of children during the summer. SED cannot approve if you are a nonprofit organization without a 501c3 or certificate of incorporation, if the sponsor identifiable through its organization, officers, employees, or otherwise has been deemed seriously deficient in its operation of any federal child nutrition program. Cannot be approved if you have outstanding corrective action due to SED for any other feeding program, or if you are required to pay back any money to SED as a result of review. If you have not submitted an A133 audit to the clearinghouse if required. If you are an SFA serving only children enrolled in mandatory summer school, you must continue to count and claim free, reduced, and paid under the National School Lunch Program. If you are in the process of declaring bankruptcy or have declared bankruptcy, if SED receives your application past the May 1st deadline, and organizations that are not tax exempt or have had their tax exempt status automatically revoked by the IRS. To receive federal funds, you must be in compliance with all civil rights requirements. This is expected from both the sponsor and at all of the sites. For the SFSP, the basic civil rights requirements include the following. You must provide equal access to all children and treat everyone the same, provide good customer service, resolve conflicts at the earliest opportunity. The USDA offers an alternate dispute resolution program. Information is available on their website. You must post a Justice for All poster displayed at all sites and use the non-discrimination statement on all SFSP-related materials. You also must train your staff on civil rights. We provide you with a PowerPoint that's on our website for you to use. The sponsor application includes questions regarding civil rights. Remember, as a recipient of federal funding, you are required to provide equal access to all potential recipients. The application asks specific questions to ensure you are fulfilling these requirements as a sponsor. The application also asks about LEP, Limited English Proficiency. We want to ensure you are reaching out to persons in the appropriate language. If your community is comprised of people that speak English and Spanish, your program materials should reflect this. We ask if your organization has procedures for handling civil rights complaints and if you have had any complaints in the last 2 years. Also, you need to disclose what procedures are in place for accommodating students with special dietary needs. Civil rights requirements are covered throughout this presentation and also in the Part 2 webinar. The USDA non-discrimination statement can be found at the very bottom of our website. You can also view the most updated information for civil rights requirements under the Popular Topics section at the bottom of our website. As stated earlier, it is a requirement that the full and most up-to-date USDA non-discrimination statement is included on any documents released to the public pertaining to the Summer Food Service Program. This includes websites, flyers, any program materials, and child nutrition-related forms. A site is the location where the children eat meals. Some examples of where the sites could be located are at a school, playground, park, recreation center, YMCA, libraries, or low-income housing areas. Site responsibilities include serve meals to all eligible children 18 years of age and under, serve meals that meet the minimum meal pattern requirements, provide adequate supervision during the meal service, ensure that children eat all meals on site, maintain and submit promptly such reports and records that the sponsor requires, report to the sponsor any changes in the number of meals required as attendance fluctuates, report any other problems regarding the meal service, comply with civil rights laws and regulations, adhere to local health and sanitation regulations, and attend sponsor training sessions. For a site to be eligible and approved by SED, the sponsor must complete the new site information sheet and demonstrate the site will serve a low-income population. The site must meet income-eligible criteria. More information on determining site types and eligibility will be discussed in Part 2 of the webinar. Next, we will discuss the financial planning part of the program. Please be sure to go on our website for more information regarding all financial information. When SED reviews your financial system, we are strictly concerned with how your summer food reimbursements are received and spent and administered from your nonprofit food service account. Summer food service program sponsors may maintain a separate or a commingled account for the receipt and distribution of SFSP funds. A separate account may be easier for you to document and demonstrate your income and expenses pertaining to operating the summer food service account. If you maintain a commingled account, you must implement a system to clearly identify SFSP costs so the use of your reimbursement can be tracked. It must also show the efficient use of funds. Reimbursements should be used timely after receiving them to pay for program costs. Your system must include adequate safeguards, have built-in checks and balances to assure program assets are used solely for authorized purposes. However your system is set up, you must be able to make accurate, current, and complete disclosure of financial records related to the SFSP. When planning for the Summer Food Service Program, consider all aspects of the program. What are your program's needs? What are your program's expenses? How are you going to run the program? Who will help you? Consider your needs and expenses compared to reimbursement. Is the program financially feasible? The goal of the program is to feed children and hopefully break even. This is not an opportunity to make money. Your program budget is for your entire summer. The SFSP budget that we will be talking about is solely the reimbursement for the meals served during the summer. Sponsors need to develop a budget for their SFSP based on potential reimbursement. Sponsors can fill out the potential reimbursement worksheet mentioned earlier to help with initial budgeting. Additionally, once all site program information has been entered on CNMS, the system will generate an estimated reimbursement as well. SED will review sponsors' budget to determine that adequate resources are allocated for management, oversight in the meal service, and for expenses that seem unreasonable. Inappropriate allocation for administrative costs may lead to inadequate meal service. Sponsors must ensure that the quality of the food service is not compromised. Administrative costs cannot exceed 15% of the total program costs. On the flip side, excessive or unrealistic operational costs, such as food costs, may jeopardize the sponsor's ability to adequately oversee the program. All budgeted costs must be reasonable and allowable to the program. Sponsors should develop a budget monitoring system. Your system should compare your expenses versus revenue on a regular basis. Sponsors should compare actual expenses to the budget and adjust as needed. If you have unused reimbursement after all program expenses have been paid, it should be used for improving the food service, such as purchasing fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, or may be used for other child nutrition programs that you administer, such as the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, or Child and Adult Care Feeding Program. Otherwise, the unused reimbursement would be held in the nonprofit food service account to be used for next year's summer food service program. Now Eliza will discuss allowable costs.
Thanks, Megan. All program costs must be allowed under Summer Food Service Program regulations. You can refer to attachment 47 in the administrative guidance for sponsors for a list of some of the allowable costs. Federal regulations concerning costs are available on our website in the Code of Federal Regulation 2 CFR Part 200 and Food and Nutrition Services 796-4 Revision 4. Costs must be needed and not excessive. Costs must be directly related to the feeding of eligible children. As expenses occur, they should be paid promptly within 30 days. Administrative costs would include administrative labor, costs for attending training, office supplies, rent, prorated office rent, prorated telephone, postage, invitation for bid advertisement in the newspaper with the highest circulation for the food service management contract, etc. Operational costs include food, paper cups, operational labor, food service equipment rental, transportation of food to satellite sites, transportation of children from rural areas. Costs need to be prorated, or you must allocate costs at a certain percentage if shared with other programs or activities. Prorating costs means to attribute the percentage of time or expense allocated to the summer food service program only. For example, trash removal needs to be separated from school or other camp costs, then you would prorate that cost strictly for the summer food service program. Utility costs need to be the meter for the kitchen and or the dining room only. If it isn't, the cost then would be prorated. Costs for meals that meet meal pattern requirements are the only food costs allowable. Sponsors are required to maintain source cost documentation to show how you are using summer food service program funds. Purchase orders are sent to a supplier authorizing shipment of a product to the customer at a specified price and terms. Sponsors should have a system to keep track of goods that have been received. This should come in the form of a delivery receipt and or a goods received note generated by the receiver. These documents serve to notify whoever is issuing payment in your organization that the goods ordered were received. Invoices should match the purchase orders and be maintained with all the cost documentation. Your system should allow for consistent matching of invoices and their corresponding proof of payment. All copies of canceled checks submitted as documentation should include both the front and the back of the check. Sponsors must maintain bank statements and a ledger. Any employee that will be performing operational summer food service program tasks must be paid at least a minimum wage. The minimum wage for New York State effective 12/31/18 is $11.10 per hour, with areas in New York City and the metropolitan area slightly higher. Labor costs are allowable to the program only when the amounts are based on hourly rates that are reasonable for the services provided and are documented by payroll records such as time cards, timesheets, and payroll ledgers. Each payroll record must be signed by the employee certifying the number of hours worked and be approved by the employee's supervisor. Employees in your summer food service program must be paid at least bi-weekly or twice per month. It is against state labor laws to pay employees once per month or at the end of the summer. Bonuses are not an allowable SFSP cost. If you plan on paying your staff only once a month, you cannot use summer food service program reimbursement to pay them. Again, please refer to 7 CFR Part 200 and FNS 796 available on our website for more information regarding financials. Advance payments are available to sponsors to use as startup funds and to use for program costs throughout the program. Advance payments will be deducted from future reimbursement payments. You can request an advance with your application. You must operate at least 10 days for the month of the requested advance. The amount of the advance payment will be based on planned participation. Non-school sponsors must meet certain criteria for the August event or advance. These include your staff training must be completed, the sponsors operating the number of sites which the administrative budget was approved, and projected administrative costs do not differ significantly from the approved budget. The finance office will seek to recoup any advance payments made in excess of the sponsor's meal times rate. SED recommends submitting the claim for reimbursement within 10 days of the end of the claim period. Claims for reimbursement must be submitted in CNMS no later than 60 days following the last day of the full month covered by the claim. Claims for reimbursement that are made on a monthly basis. SED does not allow sponsors to combine claims for subsequent months. If your claim is submitted after the final deadline, you will have two options: circumstances beyond your control exemption and the one-time exception. The circumstance beyond your control exemption, you will be required to submit a detailed description of the events and circumstances that prevented the claim from being submitted on time, including documentation if available. This will be submitted to SED, and then SED will review and forward this on to USDA. The one-time exception can only be used once every 36 months or 3 years, and a corrective action plan must be submitted to SED for approval. When a sponsor is requesting an upward adjustment to a claim after the 60-day deadline, they must request either the one-time exception or the beyond your control exemption. If SED determines an upward adjustment may be made as a result of the review process, then SED may make the adjustment beyond the 60-day deadline. Downward adjustments may be made at any time, but sponsors must submit to SED an explanation describing the events that prevented compliance with claim submission requirements. For camp sponsors claiming 3 meals per day and including both eligible and non-eligible children in their meal counts, Attachment 17 is available on our website to calculate the number of meals that can be claimed for reimbursement. Remember, the sooner you submit your claim, the quicker you will receive the reimbursement. If you are having trouble submitting the claim, first check your renewal to make sure that if needed, a camp permit has been submitted, the site is approved, your SAMS has not expired, and all other information about your sites is correct, including your approved meals, begin and end dates, CAP, and ADP. SED recommends submitting your claim within 10 days of the claim period ending to provide time to work through any of these issues. Just as a reminder, federal and state payments for breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack are paid together. If you have problems with your claim, you can call the reimbursement office. SED requires all sponsors participating in the Summer Food Service Program to maintain all records relating to operating the program. Refer to Attachment 26 for a list of these records. When we review your program, we will expect to see your record of program income and a record of your proration of all approved cost allocation methods. As always, you must maintain accurate records, and you must completely disclose all activities related to the Summer Food Service Program. Next, we will talk about SFSP monitoring and reviews. Sponsors have 2 training responsibilities. First is to attend SED's annual sponsor training, and the second is to train your own staff prior to the beginning of your summer operations and throughout the summer as needed, or if new staff is hired after your initial training. You must ensure that the staff operating your program understand the SFSP rules and regulations and will work daily to ensure you are in compliance. You must cover all topics listed in the SED's training checklist for sponsors, which can be found in the NYSED Attachments Manual on our website as Attachment 14, and you must maintain an agenda and sign-in sheet with printed names and signatures and the date that the training was conducted. You must train your staff on the specific policies that have been established for your site, such as obtaining meal counts, complete reimbursable meals, your adult meal policy, what to do with leftovers, and what to do in case of inclement weather, emergencies, or delivery truck breakdown. Regulations state that at least one person trained by the sponsor must be present at each meal service. All staff involved with the meal service must be trained. If training staff separately, monitors should be present at both operational and administrative training so they can get a good grasp on program operations at both levels. Proper training, monitoring, and good communication between site staff and the sponsor are crucial to operating a successful program. All sponsors are required to conduct their own self self-monitoring of all their sites and document the visits on SED's attachment form. Your monitors conducting the site visit must be properly trained on all of the program requirements and must be able to provide technical assistance and corrective action on site as needed. Monitors should expect to arrive at the approved meal service begin time and observe an organized meal service taking place. All of the meal components should be ready to be served and children should be seated and ready to eat. Monitors should observe adequate adult supervision and trained staff obtaining a point of service meal count of complete meals at all points of service. And Justice for All posters and a menu should be posted at each site, and open sites should have banners or signage welcoming children 18 and under for free meals. The pre-operational site visits should be conducted for all new sites and problem sites. You can use attachment 42 for this. The first week site visits are now required for all sponsors. You can use attachment 43. The sponsor must conduct the 4-week review sometime within the first 4 weeks of operation. You should use attachment 44. Sponsors operating for less than 4 weeks must still complete both the first site visit and the 4-week review and document both. The deadline date for the first week and 4-week reviews to be conducted is right on your profile page. Attachment 44 is also where you capture the racial and ethnic data. If you have more than one session, attachment 46 should be used to collect the racial and ethnic data for each session. As stated prior, the deadlines for the required site monitoring can be found on your CNMS profile page. SED's attachment manual is where you will find the tools to conduct your self-monitoring. Attachment 43 should be used to document your first week site visit, and attachment 44 should be used to document your 4-week site review. Maintain these records for SED to review at your administrative review. The Summer Food Service Program's review is a 2-step process. First is the site review, second is the administrative review. The first step of the SED review process is the unannounced site review. It is expected that a site supervisor or monitor is available on site to explain the system for obtaining a meal count, answer any questions pertaining to the meal service, and be able to obtain the documents requested. Similarly to your own self-monitoring reviews, SED expects to observe an organized meal service taking place. All meal components should be prepared and ready to serve at the approved meal service time, and children should be seated and ready to eat. Meal service should run smoothly. There should be adequate adult supervision and trained staff obtaining a point of service meal count at all points of service. Requested documents must be on site and readily available. Income applications should be in a secure location but still easily accessible. A menu and Justice for All posters should be posted at each site. Once SED has completed our review form, there must be a designated person to go over the review form and any technical assistance or corrective action needed. The sponsor must correct all findings as discussed at all sites, not just the site reviewed, and within a time frame specified by SED. If your system for obtaining an accurate meal count is not working, SED expects this to be corrected by the next meal service. All sites are subject to follow-up reviews to ensure corrective action has been implemented. If there are findings at the initial review, technical assistance will be provided and the sponsor will be required to take immediate and permanent corrective action at all sites to correct these findings. There may be a follow-up visit, and it may not be to that specific site. It may be to a different site under your sponsorship. If the issues found at the initial review have not been resolved to the satisfaction of the state agency, SED will establish corrective action, such as submitting daily meal counts, implementing a tray line, cutting back to a lesser number of meals served, and the sponsor will be required to adhere to this corrective action. If there is another follow-up review conducted and the issues still have not been resolved, SED can take back reimbursement, determine the site and sponsor seriously deficient, and termination can occur. The SED administrative review is the second part of your review process. Once the review is scheduled, SED will send an official visit letter with a detailed checklist of documents that must be available at the time of the review. Sponsors who are unsure of which documents apply to their organization should contact their program representative for guidance. SED will review all of the documentation that supports the operation and administration of your program. We will be following the reimbursement and advances to see exactly what the money was spent on. We will review that you have a system for paying bills and labor costs in a timely manner. A summary letter will be sent to sponsors detailing any technical assistance and/or corrective action that resulted in the site and/or administrative review. SED looks at previous year's findings prior to visiting your site and conducting your administrative review. We also review what corrective action was implemented due to those previous findings. SED may conduct follow-up reviews to ensure corrective action is implemented. However, if SED determines that the sponsor has not permanently implemented agreed upon corrective action for repeat findings, due to a lack of operational or administrative capacity to administer the program, your organization may be deemed seriously deficient and may result in termination from the SFSP. This may include SED reclaiming some or all of the reimbursement previously paid to sponsors. If a sponsor is seriously deficient, it may jeopardize their qualification for CACFP and NSLP. As mentioned earlier, included in your application packet will be a password application to provide you access to the Child Nutrition Management System. If you already have a username and password for the National School Lunch Program, you will still need to complete the application so that we can provide you with the role that will give you access to both the National School Lunch Program and the Summer Food Service Program profiles and claims. Once we've received an approvable and complete application, we will set you up on CNMS and you will receive an email with your username and password. This is the time when you can access CNMS and complete your budget, staffing charts, and request in advance if applicable. This is what your profile will look like. Your SFSP profile renewal page will look like this with all of your contacts and site information entered. You will be able to go here at any time to make updates or changes. You can change meal service times, submit field trips anytime throughout the summer. Field trips must be entered at least 48 hours prior, and mealtime changes should be made by 2 p.m. the day prior to the change. This is also where you will submit all of your claims for reimbursement. SED does not have the authority or flexibility to overlook, bypass laws and regulations to benefit a sponsor. Just as a reminder, sponsors have the right to appeal state agency administrative actions through a formal hearing. Our appeal procedures can be found on our website. You are the heart that makes SFSP work to ensure children in need have access to nutritious meals throughout the summer. We have the same goal, and we thank you. Again, you are required to attend Part 2 of the Potential Sponsor webinar on Tuesday, March 19th. We're going to take a brief moment and look over some questions. And again, if you have any questions, you can type them right into the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer any of them for you.